Alright, so I just wanted to preface, when I talk about episode 6, I didn't really talk too much about the wormhole stuff. And a lot of that is just down to the fact that I don't really have an opinion on it yet, because frankly there's not much you can say about this, because it's their world, they created it, they created the rules. So heck, they could say that this other world is ruled by koalas, and we'd all just have to accept it, because that is what they've written. So all I can really do is just talk about it in the sense of what they've already explained to us, and so far, I think it makes sense. I mean, my brain feels like mush, but I think it makes sense. Well, what's up guys, Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Stranger Things Season 5, Episode 5, Shock Jock. So this one does feel like a bit of a pump the brakes type of episode where we are learning a little bit more, which I do think after the episode that we just had kind of makes a little bit of sense. We had all this action, so now it's time to pause and actually make some more progression as far as the story is concerned. And again, trying to get through this as clean as possible. I'm going to tackle this one story at a time. So first of all, Will's side of the story. It is really cool getting to see him actually doing something this season. The first 2 seasons, he wasn't really involved heavily. He wasn't much of a character. First season, he was gone most of it. Second season, he was there, but he was kind of a pawn of the Mind Flayer. And then season 3 and 4, there was just not much for him to do, so he was just there. So it is nice that this season he's actually getting some more character development. He's getting some moments to actually do something. And I like a lot of these scenes. I think it really works for him to see him stand up to Vecna and take over for a second, even though in the end, Vecna is still stronger. So it makes a lot of sense that he would be able to overpower Will and push him back out of himself. But also he got a chance to save Max in the process of doing that, so it's a nice scene for him there. Don't know if he's dead or if he's just been knocked out. They seem to be panicking as if he might be dead, so I don't really know what's happening there. But that takes us into Max's side of the story, trying to help Holly and Derek out. It's so funny how much Derek has turned it around. Like seeing him being delightful Derek in the woods. I don't know why, it's kind of funny. The fact that Holly was just like, no, we need dipshit Derek, please. But of course, Henry realizing what's going on, I'm not surprised he managed to track down Derek and also convince him to go back to the house and keep all the kids there. Something that I do wonder about though, if Max and Holly had managed to get to that place that Max had found before where she nearly got out, would they have been able to get out? Because first of all, it seemed like the only reason Max had a chance to get out in that moment was because the music was playing. They didn't have anything like that for Holly. And on top of that, even if they did, Holly would just wake up and she'd still be connected to one of the spires with the thing pumping whatever the little slugs into her. So I don't really know that would have done much anyway. So I will admit a lot of this kind of felt like a fruitless adventure in my mind. So even when Henry showed up, I didn't go, oh no, they were so close. I went, okay, I mean, they're going to fail anyway, so I guess this is just the way they fail. But moving on from that, we have the stories going on in the Upside Down. First of all, we'll discuss Ellen Colley, sort of talking about what happened to Colley, her getting taken by this government program, and finding out that apparently it is the same government program that created Eleven and the kids to begin with. Which does beg the question, was Dr. Brenner trying to help the kids? Like, it's clear he had his own personal motives for why he wanted to do this, but at the same time, it does seem like the government program that created these kids, who knows what they're going to try to do with them? Who's the lesser evil, Dr. Brenner or the government program? It's hard to tell. The fact that they are essentially pumping Colley's blood into these pregnant women, the same thing they did with Henry to create all these kids to begin with. It's kind of crazy. So that was definitely a huge revelation, and it does affect my view on Dr. Brenner a little bit. He definitely still seems like a narcissistic douchebag that was doing it for himself, doing it for the pursuit of science. And who knows, maybe he was a part of the program and sort of broke off from it at some point. But at the very least, he did seem to care about these kids in his own way. Whereas the government program, I assume, was probably just trying to create soldiers, more than likely. So this scene, it almost gives us a new evil that makes Dr. Brenner look a little less evil by comparison, which I find kind of interesting. It sort of reshapes his whole relationship with Eleven, even though he's not around anymore. And I could be wrong. We could find out that ultimately he was working with them the whole time. Like, he only broke off last season before he was still working with them when she first got away from him. I hope we get maybe a little bit more about that in the next episode, because it definitely does raise a lot of interesting questions. But the other 2 stories are, we do see Steve and Dustin finally coming to blows because Dustin's been acting like an asshole all season. Steve calls him out on it and also kind of goes in a little bit too hard, in my opinion. He's not necessarily wrong. He did tell Eddie and Dustin to both not be heroes, Eddie did try to be a hero, and that is what got him killed. But to say that he didn't save anyone, that's where I feel like that was maybe a little bit too far, possibly born out of frustration for how Dustin's been acting all season. But I do think if he had gone back through the portal with Dustin, there's a good chance the bats would have followed them through, maybe killed some more people. So him leading them away, I can't say that it was not a heroic decision and didn't save anybody. But again, Steve might just be talking out of pain and frustration because Dustin's being such an asshole and has been for a while now. So can kind of understand him just letting it all out and saying some things that maybe he didn't mean in the moment, but it was just born out of that frustration. And then we also see Nancy and Jonathan. They do have a little bit of a discussion finally about their relationship and where they are. I kind of understand why Jonathan's bringing it up. He does make a good point about he's not sure what's going to come after this. He's scared in the moment. So I understand that, but at the same time, if they don't win, then who cares what's going to come after? You guys won't be around anymore. So I'm kind of mixed on it. I hope they do have a good discussion about it because I'm still of the opinion that Nancy and Jonathan don't work. And even here, she finally asks him, is there anything you're not talking to me about? And he once again lies to her face, tells her there's nothing. So I'm just still not really feeling it. So I hope they just deal with it soon and move past it because I am kind of sick of all the bickering between these four characters in particular. I still like them all as characters. It's just these interactions have not been as fun for me this season, outside of a couple of funny, snarky lines just because I like the snarky, sarcastic quips. Yeah, I don't know what it could possibly be up on the roof. Dustin says it's not a generator, so not really sure what that could be. I don't know why it would kill all of them, but we do see Nancy pull the trigger at the end, so I guess we're going to find out in the next episode. So I do think that'll do it for this episode, so on to the next one. I'll see you there. And now episode 6, Escape from Camazotz. Once again, a lot of great moments in this one. A couple of coincidental happenstance things that happen that I'll talk about in a little bit. But really, there's so much connected in this episode that I feel like talking about one story is going to be difficult because there's sort of one big story over here involving a bunch of different characters. And then there's Nancy, Steve, Jonathan, and Dustin over here doing their own thing. So we'll talk about them first, just the shorter of the two stories. First of all, wonderful scene. Finally getting to see Dustin open up and be honest for a minute with Steve, talking about how he can't lose anybody else again. It was just nice to finally have that moment because it's been a long season with Dustin, if I'm being honest. He hasn't been likable. He's not been a fun character to be around. So it's nice to have him finally open up for a second. I'm sure they'll expound upon it a little bit more in the next episode. He and Steve can finally talk and finally reconcile that friendship. But yeah, it was a really nice moment and very well done acting wise. For Nancy and Jonathan, this is one of the coincidental things I'm talking about because yeah, we see them in this room, they're trapped, no way out. Looks like they're basically done for because the room's just filling with all of it looks like wax to me. I know it's like everything melting because of the wormhole generator or whatever. I don't even know what to call it. I guess like the heart of the wormhole, but it's melting everything. It looks like they're just going to get sucked into it because everything in the room is filling up with the melted stuff. And then it just happens to harden right at the right time, right before they end up in it. It's just like, okay, sure. I guess I'll accept that. Maybe we'll find out there was something else that stopped it from melting, but it doesn't seem like the heart of the wormhole has stopped going wild. So I don't feel like there's any reason why stuff should have stopped melting. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but their conversation was much needed. At the end of the day, I still don't see a whole lot about why they belong together, but at the very least, they got to communicate. They got to open up and finally admit some of the stuff that they've been hiding. And I think that's one thing as well that I didn't really see them doing a lot. There wasn't a lot of communication between them. So even though they weren't necessarily the perfect match, like they didn't share a lot of similar interests, they didn't seem like the same type of people, they did have that shared trauma. But the big thing for me was the fact that they just didn't really talk about much. You know, when they worked at the paper together, Jonathan was just kind of doing his own thing, taking pictures. Nancy was getting upset, and he just kind of brushed off her problems most of the time. Like, I don't know why you keep trying to do this. She wasn't ever really talking to him about how much this meant to her, about why this meant so much to her. I feel like he was only focused on the fact that she was trying to do something that was never going to happen. He was never actually trying to help her accomplish her goals. So it feels like there was a lot of moments in these 5 seasons where it feels like just some communication really would have helped them grow as a couple, and it probably would have made me care about them more as well. So this was the first moment where I actually did feel something for this relationship because they were both finally just honest with each other. It was very, very welcome. So a couple of good stories there, but everything else, like I said, it's all connected together. For any Manifest fans out there, it's all connected. But we see Elle trying to get in touch with Will. Will is being used by Vecna to try to get to Max. Max and Holly are trying to get away from him. They escape into his memories. Lucas and Robin head to the hospital to try to help Max get out of there. So you got all these things happening at about the same time. For the most part, it was all really enjoyable. I liked Holly getting a chance to step up and show what she's worth, which did, I will admit, make that final scene between her and Max a little less impactful, because we just saw in this episode where Max was wanting to sit in the cave and just wait for somebody to come get them. Holly was like, no, let's actually go do something about this. We just saw that happen. So to end the episode with Holly going, I can't do anything. All I could think is, you're the one that got Max out of the cave. What are you talking about? Where is this coming from? I understand watching her mom get hurt, watching Max get hurt. I understand why that made her feel that way. But the problem is, those were previous episodes. This whole episode has been devoted to showing Holly helping Max get out of there, doing something to get them closer to the exit. So I think because of that, there's a little bit of a disconnect from me watching this, where I look at it and go, there's been a lot of evidence of you being very helpful and very useful to people, very powerful as well. I think the other thing too is that the scene did go on for quite a while, to be honest, because first Max has to tell her to find something to hold on to that's very important to you, that has a connection to home. She tells her that, and then she talks about Holly the heroic, I think. Can't remember the name of the little trinket now. But then Holly calls it a toy. Max has to tell her it's not a toy, it's who she is, but then she has to doubt herself, so Max has to tell her that she's done a lot, and she has to go into why she doubts herself, all the time she didn't help, and then Max has to convince her that, yeah, you couldn't do anything in those moments. There's just a lot about this that I feel like it was a little overdone, again, with the mindset of, we watched this whole episode where, if not for Holly, they would have stayed in the cave. So I was not really connecting with the story, and on top of that, it was taking a long time to get through this little speech. So it was a little, I wouldn't say frustrating, but just not as good as the rest of the episode, in my opinion. But add on top of that, we do have one moment that I will say, it was badass, it was really cool. I can't say it makes a whole lot of sense, because with the Demodogs attacking, Lucas, Robin, and Vicky taking Max down into the laundry room. We also see Karen standing up out of bed and grabbing one of these or we didn't see her grab it, but she looked at these gas canisters. So first of all, the Demodogs go from these hunters that are just quickly going around attacking everything, tracking down Max, to now they break into this room and they're like skulking about. Really slow, skulk all the way around the laundry room except for this one final spot where everybody is. There's a mirror that they can look at the Demodogs. Demodogs somehow don't see them in the mirror. They also have the music playing. Somehow the Demodogs don't instantly go after that. But it's all just to give Karen time to get down to the laundry room. She then puts the gas canister into one of the dryers. Hang on, I'm going to look this up. After doing some research, actually I was wrong about that. It is possible for gas canisters to explode in the dryer from what I read. It's like aerosol canisters can catch fire, so I guess that does make sense, but still, it is very coincidental how this is all set up with the Demodogs just suddenly stopping their onslaught, stopping their intense hunt, just to take their time and skulk about this one room when they know that they're in there. They saw them go in there, and they just take their time, giving Karen enough time to put the gas canister in the dryer and turn it on. But there is one other question that does raise, though, which is, how did Karen know where they were headed? How did she get down there so quickly with all of her injuries? Did nobody try to stop her? There's just a lot about it that I thought was kind of goofy. But at the same time, I will admit, the explosion happening and then Karen emerging from the smoke, it was pretty badass. So it's one of those, it's cool enough to where I'm okay with some of the happenstance moments that led up to it. On the other side of things, we don't get too much. It's mostly just Eleven looking for Will and trying to essentially help him out. But we do have a little bit of a conversation between Collie and Mike and Hopper, where it is revealed to both Mike and Hopper what the government's doing. And it does show that even with Henry gone, the danger is not necessarily past, because they still will try to use Eleven's blood to create more like them, because she's similar to Henry. So I think it does show that Vecna is not the only thing we have to worry about now. Part of me does feel like maybe it's a little bit too much. It might have been better if this season was focused solely on taking down Vecna and stopping his plans. And also it does make me think, because I talked about after episode 4, what if Sullivan was still alive? Would he change his mind? But at the end of the day, Dr. K is the one in charge. And she's the one that wants to continue what she's doing. She wants to try to create more of these kids. I do wonder if she'll ever find out that what's happening with Henry, with Vecna, is all they're doing from what they created. And of course, for her, she may not care. She may just look at it and go, yeah, look at what powerful being we created. What if we could harness that? Because there are some people that think that way. They always are thinking of a way to get the power and use it instead of looking at all the casualties and collateral damage that are caused by their actions. And also, I know it's not something that I talk about too much because I've already talked about how much I love the music in this show, mostly because I love 80s music, so of course it makes sense. But I will say, some of the ways that they've introduced versions of songs in this show has really, really worked. Because they have a similar version of Running Up That Hill, similar to what we had in the finale of Season 4. It really just adds this extra oomph to these scenes that does sort of get you in the feels a little bit. But that'll do it for me. So with all that being said, cue the outro. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that review. I hope you enjoyed it. First and foremost, please leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I love having discussions with people, so whatever your thoughts were, whether you agree or disagree with me, please leave them down below. Obviously, no spoilers. Also, if you did find yourself enjoying this review and you want to see more, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I also have a gaming channel as well as a channel where I talk about soccer, so if you want to give those a follow as well, that would be much appreciated. And lastly, if you want to help me improve upon the quality of these channels, I do have a Patreon. All of this is in the description below. With all that being said, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to y'all later. Peace out.